Is your business being sabotaged by software costs? G'day, I'm Peter Bender from Bundaberg Commercial, and today we're going to talk about what you can do in controlling software costs, understanding which ways to look at which costs are good for you, and just general discussion on what I've found over the last couple of years. So, first thing to recognize is there's really probably three phases of acquisition of software. There's the first phase, which is when you really start your business. And the second phase is when you realize your business is doing okay and you need to have growing pains and outlay some more money to make the business viable. And the third phase is where we look at systemizing and automating and looking for cost efficiencies. So if we look at this first module that I've got here, no expense paid. I've got all this software, but I've still got to do these things by hand. I started my business with Microsoft Office and Gmail. Love Gmail. And I still use Gmail now, much to the chagrin of a lot of my friends and peers. Peter, you can't be using a Gmail as a business address. Well, you might be surprised how many businesses are done that way. And the software actually works for me. The fact that it integrates well with Drive and allows me to do the things I need to do, the connectivity to YouTube, all that it works well for me, so I'm quite comfortable with using that one. And Microsoft Office was great. I used the software for Excel and particularly Word, and also used Outlook Explorer. It cost me $200 a year, 10% increase each year. Yeah, probably more than 3 times what the rate of inflation is. But all in all, it's a pretty cheap software. If life was like that all the way, then that would be pretty good, wouldn't it? But then we worked out this business is actually going to make a go of it. Okay, we're going to have to now start spending some money to increase the size and scale. And that is where phase 2 comes in. And if you look at this chart now, you see a lot of the software that I picked up in phase 2 was all in regards to marketing and advertising. A lot of that was in that sort of phase. So you got things like Seek Business, cost me $8,000 a year to put my ads out there. A lot of these are online listing sites, so I put my businesses and my commercial properties on there. Started doing my YouTube videos. Hey, that's cool. I work off the free one. And if you're a fan of free YouTube, then please hit YouTube and hit subscribe. Let me get some mileage out there and let me understand. I'm not just talking to myself on a computer, but you are out there and appreciating what I've got. We had to look at going to zero. I was comfortable doing my financials in Excel spreadsheet, but my accountant wasn't. So she wasn't tolerating that sort of behaviour after the initial bootstrapping stage. When you run your business on an oily rag and your car's put together with gaff tape and barbed wire. Well, when we sort of grew, our accountant says, we need to mature the way that we do it. I think she's just a little bit lazy. She liked the easier stuff coming out of zero. But that was suddenly $1,000 a year, not too bad. 10% increase each month, each year. So once again, 3 times what it should be, but that's the way it goes. One of our big kickers was commercial real estate, and it cost me about $4,000 a year on that one. So it's a sizable chunk for what we've got. And I recognise that bigger agencies have got so much money coming in, they wouldn't even know, the price over software. But we're still at the stage where we've got to manage our costs. And you probably are as a small business as well. And you see there it's got 400% increase. You go, what? Why are you hanging around 400%? Well, they actually brought out some new product lines, and those product lines were really, really good for business brokers. So that's why we were comfortable to increase our spend and spend that amount of money. And that's one of the things you always need to look at. Are you getting value out of your money? If you flip over to the middle there, it says real commercial is also $4,000, but there is, it's like night and day difference. Real commercial is so close to being axed out of my portfolio. I love the fact that every provider out there says you've got 50 million people coming to my website. It's awesome. Well, I actually track how many customers and where they come from, and I tell you now, real commercial is only about a third of the work that I get through, and they probably have 2/3 of the listings in the marketplace. So they can brag all they want, but the evidence on my bank account is that when it comes time to having to cut something, They are really sitting on that thin ice category. And 30% increases is also not acceptable. Now, one of the good things is we don't need to accept these huge price changes. And an effective way that I've found to do it is not so much complaining when you get someone from a call center, but a lot of these software will give you an account manager. So when there's a price increase, particularly at the end of the financial year or something like that, send back a message saying, "Look, this is 3 times the rate of inflation. What's your story?" It's only when we push back and let them know that this is not acceptable that they can actually start to get some feedback. And you can find that the sales managers and the sales reps and the account managers, they're the ones who are sensitive. When they start to feel that you're cranky and about to go, that's going to affect their pocket. They will tell their sales manager, who will then tell their marketing department, who will then tell their finance department, because they all want to keep their customers. Yeah, they all want to get maximum price increase. And look, I do price increases as well. But give them those feedbacks. Another thing that I love is I love those customer service. I actually fill them out. That's a great avenue because when I worked in Telstra, we used to get customer surveys every month, and there's a manager that is always held accountable for performance. You chuck in a really cranky comment that your pricing is high, you're giving me a third of the work that I've got, and the increase is just not acceptable. The philosophy that a lot of these providers have is, you just pass it on to the customer. Well, my customer's not going to take a 300% price increase for it. In marketing, for argument's sake, in commercial real estate, you can pay anywhere between $200 to $4,000 for the package, depending on who you work with. But that doesn't get accepted in regional areas. If you've got working with small businesses, they're not going to pay that much, and rightly so too. So they push back on me, which means I go and push back to them. Not to the customer, but to the suppliers. Like, my customers aren't taking it. And then when things start to get a little bit tight, it's great. They get arrogant when the economy's thumping along, and there's lots of real estate agencies. But right now, there's actually a lot of turbulence in the real estate industry, and some of those independents are starting to shut down. There's a lot of people sort of leaving the industry because it's just not as wonderful as it was. Those residential agents who are used to getting a sale a week or 3 sales a week are now getting one a month, and that's not paying their mortgages. They're leaving in droves. That then has an effect on the providers, the software providers. So I let them know if things are getting quiet and your prices are too high, you need to start bringing them down, or I'm just going to axe you. Okay, that's my vent. I'll get off my soapbox. Okay, what else we got in that expansion phase? Well, look, I went into Facebook. Love it. That was free of charge. I could do a lot of work in there. Got a lot of customers, particularly listings. Bundaberg Commercial. That's my website. It cost me $250 a year. Hasn't raised in price in 2 years. How awesome is that? That's great value. But that's part of the expansion. Right, in the final phase, which is when we start to look at phase 3, is when we are looking towards systemizing things and getting efficiencies. And a lot of that software is in that category. So up the top there, you see RP Data. RP Data is a data house for us to let me know what prices are sold for properties. And it also gives me, or supposedly gives me, owner details. Now, this is another one of those aspects where you just don't blindly accept what someone gives you. I picked up RP Data, which is $2,000 a year. So, to me, that's something that needs to be addressed, and it's 20% increase. So, they're not shy. I got it because it was supposed to give me owner details, so I could send out letters to customers and say, "Look, you're interested in selling your property." And I give you an example. I looked at one last week and had a PO box. I thought, awesome. I can send off a letter and, "Dear John, would you like to sell your property? Come talk to me. I'm taller than everybody else, so no other reason why you shouldn't use me." And I looked and I thought, well, that actually looks like about 30 years old. And I had a look online, and can you believe it? Both the buyers, the husband and wife, they both passed away. I thought, why am I paying $2,000 a year for data that's just no use? So sorry, RP Data is right up there with Royal Commercial. When things get tough, that's probably going to be the first one that's going to be axed. So, make sure you get the value of it, and don't be shy to say no. Just because it's a subscription and they suck money out of you every month or every quarter or every month, every annual, doesn't mean that you have to keep it going. DocuSign. Oh look, I love DocuSign. Do I need it? Probably not, but it's a fun one. DocuSign enables me to get contracts signed electronically, and that is more and more common nowadays. I can go old school. I can cancel that and save myself $1,000 a year. 300% increase is a little bit shy. They're not bad, but I could print it out and go to my buyers and sellers and get them to sign it out. Yeah, and that's okay. And there's fun in doing that. It's always a good, pleasant time getting contracts signed up. It feels good for everybody involved. But increasingly, my buyers and sellers are interstate, so that becomes a challenge. I had to scan a 20-page document, email it off to them. They'd print it, and they'd scan it and send it back to me, and they'd go to the other the buyer, for argument's sake, or the seller. By the time it comes back and I send it off to the lawyer looks at this scribbly little thing and says, Peter, I can't accept this. I can't read it. It's all blurry. So DocuSign is really good for that aspect. And that's part of the efficiency. RealWorks is another one. It's a specific industry software that has a lot of my standard contract forms and listing forms. $600, yeah, and 20% increase. To me, sometimes I get more upset with the huge rises. It shows that they're not running their business well. So, but that's it. But you can still find out when your efficiency, like I've got Substack, $0. Substack's great. I was getting letters from Google and Microsoft saying, Peter, your email monthly newsletter is too big. You're killing us. We're going to start calling you a spammer and blocking them. But, okay. Let's see what we do with that. So big shout out to Cameron, my IT guy. He set me up with Substack, and now we send out 2,500 newsletters out through Substack, and Google and Microsoft are back being happy with me. So what does it do in summary? Okay, if you looked back over the journey of my software subscription and suffering, is when we first started, it cost us $200 a year. Yeah, it was easy. When we bulked up, we had to go to, I think it was 17.5 grand a year. So that's a big chunk of change. And then the final phase, when we got into systemizing and streamlining and getting efficiencies, it snuck up to 20 grand. 20 grand a year is a sizable chunk of change. So we're constantly having a look at it. And my old boss used to say, make sure you put your efficiencies in place and cost cutting in place when times are good, because every boom follows a bust and every bust follows a boom. So, like the residential agents right now, they're really paying in the market right now, and they're cutting costs all over the place, and they're doing it in an uncontrolled manner and shutting offices, getting rid of staff. But if you're in a good period of time and you're constantly looking at, okay, which software, real commercial and RP data, well, if I need to, I can dump six grand in a year, which is 30% of my expenses, without too much impact. And that's the philosophy you need to do with your software. Have a budget, look at it, and even in Xero, just break down your software. I have each type of software listed individually, so I can see exactly what they've been hitting me, charging me each month, and what they've had compared the year before. All right, I hope these things help you. It gives you an idea of the 3 phases that you can expect with software. It gives you an idea of some of the expenses in my industry. Yours will probably be differently, but the concept will be the same. You'll have the 3 phases, nothing at the beginning, pardon me, a whole heap in the middle, and then a little bit at the end. All right, until next week, I hope you enjoy this. Leave me a comment. Take care and God bless.